Hi everybody, welcome to Abantu May. Long time no see. My name is May and I talk about decolonization, about black awareness. I talk about questions I have on my mind. I talk about just curiosity on the way the world works and why we do the things we do and if it's really helpful for us or not. So if you like any of those things, please stay tuned. This video's topic is on the pros and cons of growing up in many countries. Okay, so a bit of my history. I was born in Uganda. At 6 years old, we moved to South Africa, and at 12 years old, we moved to Denmark, and then at 28, I want to say, I now currently live in Brazil. So, but I would like to talk more about the periods between Uganda and Denmark, and share a little bit about my own experience and the things that I've thought have benefited me from growing up in different countries, but also the things that are cons to growing up in different countries. The number one, it's that you learn how to adapt a lot. You learn to adapt very well in different ways, because every new setting that you come into requires you to be not a different person, but to understand people differently. And so you learn to be understanding of adaptation and diversity, because you see it, you've seen it enough times to know, okay, this is how people do things here, that is how people do things here. But the con to that is also that you learn to adapt so much that it can also get tiring, because you just want to fall in. You know, a lot of people, if you've lived the same place forever, that's not something you think about, like fitting in, except like maybe on a social basis. But talking about like a person basis, where it's not just about like, am I with these people or that people, but how can I actually adapt to a language, to a culture, to all this stuff, right? Another thing is language. So being from different countries, you learn to pick up multiple languages. And this also sometimes help you pick up new languages, because you learn to, at least for me, like listening and being aware of how different countries use different languages, and also being able to speak multiple languages, that has actually made it even easier for me to learn even more languages, because my mind is used to handling several languages at the same time. A con to that, however, is the fact that sometimes, like, people have mentioned this when I talk on the phone, I'm talking to my family or to my sisters, I will often just mix everything, which also means another con, that, like I said in my previous video about language, that I don't really consider myself fluent in any language, because I feel like I mix everything together, and I've never actually had how do you say, like the experience of living in a place like from birth adulthood or whatever, to really feel like I become very fluent in this language. And so I always kind of feel a bit insecure in all languages, even though now I've become more confident and be like, you know what, my language is all languages. But before that, when I was younger, I was like, oh, okay, I can't speak this language perfectly, and I can't speak this language fluently, and this one. So I have like different levels of understanding in all languages. Another thing you get to learn is how different and diverse the way we think is. Everywhere you go, people have a different way of seeing the world. They have a different worldview, they have different values and different traditions. And you're always like finding your way between all these things and trying to see that, okay, wow, so there is no singular truth. And I think that if I had lived in one place forever, that would have been something that would be easy to think, because it's your tradition, your ways of seeing the world, your way of doing things is the only way you've done things. So you think that, okay, this is how things are supposed to be done, or you can fall into that trap. Of course, a lot of people are open-minded and they understand that the world doesn't evolve around see, confusion. The world doesn't really evolve around their little setting, but it's bigger than that. I would say like a con to that is also that you need to find your own, what do you call it, your own grounding, because there's so many ways of thinking and doing things constantly infiltrating your brain. You have to decide, okay, what makes sense for me. For example, growing up in a multicultural house, for example, where you have African heritage and you also have the Danish upbringing, and they're all mixed into one, and somehow, somewhere, like, it's hard for you to see, okay, what am I, because I'm not any of them fully. So that's another con, like the sense of feeling like you don't belong anywhere entirely. It's like the language thing. I actually talked to a friend about this the other day, that it's only now in my late 20s that I'm accepting the fact that I don't belong anywhere particularly, and I belong everywhere in fragments, and that's okay. I've created my own belonging within myself and my own experiences, because I cannot fully relate to any existence. I can't fully relate to a Ugandan girl's upbringing. I can't fully relate to a Danish girl's upbringing, or a South African girl's upbringing, because it's a bit of everything and everywhere. All these experiences have created my experience, and that's the only experience I can fully relate to, right? Okay, what else? Another pro is is food. You get to taste food from all over the world. Like, now that I'm in Brazil, I've noticed that there's a lot of like traditional dishes that go again every day, like, which I love, because it's rice, beans and salad. Great, I love those things. But I think also because it's the cultural dish, and it's what, and of course Brazil is very diverse, but like the cuisine is very mixed. But I'm talking like everyday eating here is very structured in a way, like you have this for that, you have that for that. Whereas because I've grown up in different cultures and different ways of eating, I have been able to mix my way of eating. Like in our house we eat a lot of different things, and that is, for someone who loves food and enjoys food, that's something that I've really enjoyed. And it's something I've also enjoyed sharing with my family here, that the things I've learned, the way I've learned about making food. And this also includes like my travels around the world and learning from different people how they cook their food. So that has been a very cool experience, I would say, the way that food is different everywhere. What else can I say? Oh, you understand humanity different. I think this is also because I like to believe that we are of the same kind but different. And these differences matter. If we are looking at the world on a global scale, if we ever get to that point, the global scale does not exist without the, what do you call, the local scale, or the personal scale, or the communal scale. So like being able to zoom in and out, and understanding that you cannot simplify the existence of humanity, because there is so much complexity in our existence, and the things we do, and the way we think, and the things we want out of our lives. And that's another pro, I would say, that being exposed to different ways of living, because you're exposed to so many different ways of living, you get the opportunity to kind of choose and design your own values and philosophies, because you have more things to choose from. You have more ways of seeing things. So for example, when I think about maybe aspects of me that would not be as accepted, say in my African home, I know that they'll be accepted more in my Danish upbringing. And then if I have things in my Danish upbringing that I know are not as accepted in the Danish culture, I know that they're accepted somewhere else. So you kind of like create this way of understanding the world that works specifically for you. And that's a privilege, because a lot of people don't get that chance to understand that you get to decide your own values and your own philosophy, and you get to make your own, you know, it's like a buffet. You get to decide what matters to you, what doesn't matter to you, what kind of pace you want to live your life in, what kind of place you want to live your life in, like what kind of peoples, and I don't know, like your definition of success. All of these things, you get to decide those things. But if you have only been exposed to a small amount of differences, that could be hard. So yeah, so I think like I'm very appreciative of my somewhat challenging but very enriching upbringing. And even though when I was younger I saw it a lot as there was a lot of pain and burden in it, now that I've grown older, the wisdom of aging, now that I've grown older, it's something I really appreciate. And I hope that if you, maybe if you're younger, or maybe you're still going through that transition where you feel like you don't belong, you don't have to belong, because the only person you have to belong to is yourself. And you understand your experiences, you validate your experiences, and you know how they have shaped you as a person. I think sometimes we look too much for a box, which is weird because I'm all about living out of the box, but at the same time sometimes we want to find a box because it gives us comfort. And I'm just like trying to say to you that if you can't find a box, you create your own box. You say, this is May and this is what she believes in, this is her heritage, this is what makes her her, and that is entirely up to you. It doesn't have to be negotiated by anybody else. So, but I would really love to hear about you guys. If you had a multi-country upbringing and how that has affected you and your way of seeing the world, what you consider to be pros and how that has influenced who you are as a person. Have you made peace with it? Are you still searching for home? And I think that's what I'll end with. Like, now that I know all these things and I have made peace with it, like the same with belonging, I think like now home is wherever my loved ones are, and home is wherever I am as well. I don't have this need for a fixed place to say this is my only home, even though I like the idea of settling down somewhere, but I'm not as afraid to start over or to experience new things, right? So that's also something that is good from it, that it gives you a sense of adventure, or you dare more because you know you can do it. You can live somewhere else, you can learn a new language, you can adapt to a new culture, even though it's tiring. But another thing is that sometimes in a new culture you get to decide what you adapt to. As long as you're respectful, you still get to decide for you personally what you want to adapt to and what you don't want to adapt to, because nobody should force that on anybody, regardless if you grew up in that culture and that is your culture. You don't have to agree with everything in the culture. I guess that's all I gotta say. I hope you're all well. I hope I get to read some of your feedback as well. Otherwise, I see you obviously in my next video. Take care, guys. Bye.
Ujambo, salam dunia, ni siku nyingi hatujaongea hizi